persons involved and the officer. The Houston Area Women's Center is a heart to me because they have been on the ground for so long before people would even admit that domestic violence existed, and it exists for men and women. So, Sonia, we're delighted, Canales, we're delighted that you were able to come, and following you will be Ariel Hobbs. Following her will be the trustee, and we just hope you all can go so we can get into questions, but we're delighted for each of you, so each will follow. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman, thank you very much, and thank you very much for being such a champion on this issue. Commissioner Ellis, thank you, and of course, Houston Community College for having us here. One of the things that I want to reiterate is that domestic violence is a preventable crime. It's a preventable crime. We don't have to have it in our community, and it is everyone's problem. At the Houston Area Women's Center, we do three very important things. One of them is we respond to the crisis, so we definitely are in the front lines. We provide survivor empowerment and help people get through counseling, through case management, anything that they need to move their lives forward. And we do prevention. We do prevention work, and that's a very important work that we do. The other thing I want to reiterate is that domestic violence does happen to men. But most of the information that I'm going to talk about impacts women because most of the people who are killed by gun violence and domestic violence situations are women. We also know that the intersection between domestic violence and guns is well documented. It's not anything new. One of the important things that the Congresswoman has ensured is that there's resources for survivors of domestic violence and their families, as well as for sexual assault through, of course, VAWA. In the U.S., 1 in every 3 women report experiencing abuse from a partner in their lifetime. 1 in 3 women report it. Of course, men are also impacted. And we know that this type of violence does not only impact the individual victims, but it also impacts their families and entire communities such as us, as well as our economy. When domestic violence abusers have access to guns, the effects can be deadly, and most of the time they are in a large percentage of the cases. This connection between guns and domestic violence makes the U.S. the most dangerous country for women compared to other high-income countries. The most dangerous place for a woman is the United States. And just a couple of statistics. Female intimate partners are more likely to be murdered with a firearm than all other means combined. On a national level, 53% of intimate partner femicides are committed by a shooting. In Texas, the percentage increased to 68% of such murders in 2017. Gun deaths account for 97% of the entire increase of Texas women killed between 2012 and 2016, from 114 to 146. One of the things that is very important is that when somebody is trying to leave or already has left, it's the most dangerous time. So that's important for us as a community to know and understand. One of the other things that is important is that even when abusers are not pulling the trigger, abusers frequently are using guns to threaten and control their victims. Domestic violence, sexual violence, intimate partner violence has to do with power, and it has to do with control. But one of the things also that I want to talk about, that I think we've talked about it and I've heard it quite a bit, but we haven't actually called it, and that is that when we talk about this issue, we have to talk about it in an intersectional way, because this issue is an intersectional issue. Gun violence and mass shootings are not singular issues; they're not isolated, but they are the targets of this type of violence are women, the LGBT community, people of color, indigenous people, and many other groups. American gun violence it manifests in systems of racism and patriarchy. And I think we've heard that already. This is an American problem. So for us, in this movement, we believe, of course, in common sense laws, so that, like we talked about today. keeping the guns out of the hands of domestic abusers reduce gun violence, and they save lives. Existing loopholes in federal and state laws that leave guns in the hands of the most dangerous people have deadly results, and of course we see that on a daily basis. And the one thing I do want to just say is that it is important for us to talk about mental illness. That's an important issue, but it's also important for us to not blame this issue on the mentally ill. Because this is not mental violence. People who are mentally ill can be blamed for maybe only 4% of the violence. In our world, for domestic abusers or domestic violence abusers, it's not a mentally ill issue. It just isn't. It's about power and it's about control. And that's important for us to talk about and remember, because oftentimes it is immediately blamed on this mental illness, and that's not the case. So in terms of prevention, and I talked about prevention and doing this work, one of the things that is important is to really address it from all levels, right? To address it from the primary, to try to stop the violence before it happens, secondary, which is a secondary prevention, and of course tertiary. A primary prevention is something like adding social emotional learning to the schools so that we can address conflict resolution, so that gun violence is not the ultimate form of communication, and that's an important piece. Secondary prevention is what we do at the Houston Area Women's Center every day, and try to stop that cycle of violence so that we don't continue to have victims and perpetrators alike. Another secondary prevention is some of the things that Sheriff Ed Gonzalez has done around ensuring that we are providing and developing protocols to take the guns away from people who do not need to have them. And these are people who there's a protective order against them. And hopefully we can do more of that. Tertiary prevention is ensuring that offenders are held accountable. And but we have to hit it from all levels. We can't just do Band-Aid, 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 and keep just in response to whatever is happening. We have to get to the root causes. Thank you.